I'm Amanda. This is part 2 of when I lived on my nephew's property in Cedar Creek. The first video was kind of a roundabout, pushed together version of what I went through. My nephew had land there in Texas and in Oklahoma, and he lived in Oklahoma, but he was in Texas every now and then. My niece and her husband lived in another camper on the property. My other niece, my great niece, which was my nephew's stepdaughter, lived inside the house that was on the property, the trailer. Okay, now if you can follow from there. My camper did not have a refrigerator when I got it. All the electric and stuff worked, yes, but it didn't have a stove and it didn't have a refrigerator. So I had to use the refrigerator that was in the main house on the property, which was my nephew's, to store any food that I bought. They lived out of state, and my great niece was in high school, so she was gone all day during the day. My daughter was also at school, so she was also gone all day during the day. And my niece used to go to work with her husband, so they were also gone all day during the day. So most of the day I had to go without anything to eat. As a result, I lost a lot of weight. I kept as many snacks and non-perishables as I could in my camper, but being autistic, it's hard for me to eat certain things and be able to eat when I'm in certain situations. I remember one day it was over 110 degrees outside, and I'm not exaggerating if you know anything about Texas heat. My nephew showed up and cut the breaker to my electric outside to the camper, mine and my niece's. Chuck went out there and was talking to them. I just couldn't handle it at the moment. It was really hot inside my camper when that air went off. I was inside of a camper. The walls were very thin. I could hear everything that was being said about me for no reason. Like, talking about how stupid I was and just all kinds of stuff. Like, literally, just all kinds of stuff. Now, mind you, I am not a stupid person. I'm actually pretty intelligent. Autism and all. But, yeah, like, just, I can't even remember all the stuff that was said about me because of the fact that I blocked a lot of it out because it was very traumatic. that was basically the only family I had left, and that was my image of family. I was alienated. I was made to feel not even human, barely alive. Um, I went through so much there. I had decided to try and move to try to find somewhere to put my camper. It was a fifth wheel and it was really hard to find any way to get it moved. Well, Chris had talked Chuck into staying on the property. Chuck is my only help. So if you're wondering why, yeah, that's Chuck's my help. Well, Chris had talked Chuck into staying on the property. And it was after the first, I had given Chuck a couple $100 to hand to Chris and Lori, and after they decided that we were staying. And then all of a sudden one morning, Chris shows up bright and early and says that we need to leave. We had nowhere to go. He said that he would have my camper removed off the property. He would sell it and have it removed. I had no lease. I had barely any fight in me. I really did. I had barely any fight because I was just so worn down from the months of just emotional torture that I went through on that property. I ended up having to sell my camper, which was my only home, and we moved in with Chuck's grandma. Her and I get along occasionally, but she's got mental issues just like I do, and she is not always able to control her anger or anything. So we have had issues in the past. I'll leave it at that. At this time, we were getting along. Chuck and I had moved in with her again. We were still not together at this time. The only place that we had was one bedroom, and I mean tiny, tiny, tiny. There was a twin size mattress in there and enough room for a twin size air up mattress. Yeah. So me, Chuck, and our daughter moved into that room. All three of us. I stayed there for as long as I could do with fighting and arguing with Chuck. I mean, it's gonna happen. We're not together, and we were living together, staying in the same bed, same house. I mean, geez. And I had contacted a friend of mine and asked him if my daughter and I could move in with him, because I knew that he had a room that my daughter could stay in and she would have her own space. we ended up doing that. And we lived there for a little while, and he did everything that he could to make us feel comfortable, no matter what his situation was that he was going through at the moment. My daughter had her own space, and it was nice. It was really nice. And we stayed there for a few months, and then I was contacted by Child Protective Services, and turns out a case had been opened against my son's dad, and they wanted to talk to me because they had seen that I had been fighting for custody for many years. So I agreed to talk to them. I told them that I didn't have my own place at the moment, and that I was trying to get my own place, but it was hard to do on just disability and being in Texas. So I met up with the case officer, and I also let him talk to my daughter, and they kept us in mind. Well, about a week after that, if that maybe, my son called me. His dad had put his hands on him again physically, and he was crying, and I called the caseworker, and I told him I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't continue to leave my son in that situation. And so the caseworker told me to head that way, and he was granting me emergency custody. So me and Chuck, I called Chuck, and Chuck came and picked me up. I didn't have a vehicle at the time. And he took me to Emory, where I had to literally physically remove my child from this house that was there. It was a really bad situation, and I ended up getting him safely in the vehicle. We had to stop on the way back so that I could get him examined at the hospital. And I was just thrown into this situation where I don't have a home. I have my daughter. I just got my son back. Brutal situation. Not the way that I wanted to get him back, but of course I wanted him back. And in the home I was in was not completely fit for children, so I had to get out of there as soon as I could. So I started looking online, and I found this trailer for $200 a month, or $250 a month, and $100 down, and it was rent to own, and it was ghetto. I mean, ghetto, like falling apart ghetto, but I wouldn't have to deal with the social services or anything. Once I got my son, that case would be closed, and at least I knew I could make it livable. And they would have water and food and electric and all that. So we packed up the car and we moved to Oklahoma. All the animals, everything. It was an adventure, and I'll talk about that a different time.